I call the meeting to order. Roll call. Damon.
Here.
Kimberly. Here. Jeff. Ross.
Here.
I'm also. Meeting has been properly noticed and certified.
Yes.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission statement? Thanks, Jeff.
Mount Horeb Area School District, in partnership with the community, is dedicated to nurturing, educating, and challenging all students, preparing and empowering them to be productive, responsible, and self-fulfilled members of society.
Great, thank you. I'm moving on to 2A is approval of the agenda, and I am going to actually, the closed session, try to push that to next week because I still have some questions that will need answered before we can do that.
Thank you.
So that'll be the agenda without the closed session.
Second.
By Jeff, seconded by Rod. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 2B, approval of the January 20th, 2020 workshop and regular executive session minutes. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kimberly, seconded by Jeff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 3, addressing the board. We have our student spotlight tonight.
Well, welcome to Rachel Johnson and Ms. Morsard. How are you guys tonight? I hear we've got a special one tonight.
We do. We got a good one.
Well, tell us about Hudson.
So Hudson, and I have information from 2 staff members that I want to share. So first of all, his teacher, Mrs. Morsard, said he is the perfect candidate for this. Hudson has a heart of gold. No matter what friend it is, he is always including everyone. He has a special eye that spots those kids who may be lonely or sad or left out, and he goes up to them and extends his genuine kindness to them, which might be in the way of a joke or a hug or asking them if they're okay, including them in play and suggesting something to do. He is very encouraging to everyone and thinks of others instead of himself. He is the kind of friend you would want to have and the kind of friend you would want other kids to be like. Mrs. Running, our guidance counselor, is actually the first one who said something to me, and then Mrs. Morsard said, absolutely. Here's what Brooke Running had to say. She said, Hudson is a kind friend. I've observed him on several occasions, looking out for a student in his classroom so she could be included and have turns as well. When Hudson's mom came to visit for lunch one day, he actually chose this little girl to sit with them. He is thoughtful, he is kind-hearted, and extremely inclusive. So we just couldn't think of a better kid to represent the ELCPC than Hudson.
Let's give a round of applause. Hudson, who are all these fantastic people that are here for you tonight? Who are they? Everyone.
My sister Peyton, my cousin Ashton, my mom, my dad, my aunt Ashley, and my grandpa, my grandma, and Miss Morsard.
Well, they're celebrating a very special individual and most particularly the good things you're doing at school, so thank you. Would you be willing to take a picture with us? All right. And could we maybe have your family join us in that picture? Madam President and Mr. Hanna, would you be willing to be a part as our liaison for the ELCTC? You can do that maybe just right over here. Turn on an extra light. I can take that chart paper out. How are you?
A lot. I forgot. This was the student. Yeah, we just started this semester, so you are in the center. You were in the front row. You got this.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just had our first drama club meeting, which I heard that Will is doing again this year.
We gotta have the cousin in here too.
So,
Come on over,
you
honey.
guys do something for the end of the year?
We have a bunch on.
Doing chats, it's kind of like a thriller type show. It's super weird, but it's a cool show.
On three,
Does
say
it
my
involve
one, two, three.
It's lungs all production?
No, we were hoping to find one of those just to cast.
On three.
Not
Got
again.
one more.
Oh, that again.
That was funny, you should have seen. He used to have like the little weird tunes he kept swimming.
I know, thank you so much.
Yeah, so drama coach.
That's good, that's awesome. Well, you're
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
He's not been too many.
Otherwise I'll bring it.
So he's been monitoring how well
nice. That's awesome.
My administrative assistant, Susan, I'm sorry. She has a certificate, so maybe they can come by and deliver the certificate and comments on that.
That'll be okay.
That'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? Congratulations.
Yes.
What a wonderful family. Thank you.
Bye, Hudson. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks, family. Thanks for supporting your brother and your cousins.
To do everything. Talk about the horrible gas. That would be it.
Oh, good. I was going to suggest that because of all wellness thing is really good. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now. So much easier than when it's the high school sitting home. You know, I can say I'm not here now.
Okay, we can move on to 3B, school news. Allie, I think we can start with you.
Okay, so a whole bunch is happening. It's the beginning of the semester, so everything's kind of picking up. That tends to be a second semester thing. Several students placed in the Skills USA competition that happened last Thursday, so that was exciting for those kids. Science Olympiad, we had our regional competition on Saturday, which we were all a little bit nervous for. We're in a district with West and Belleville and Edgewood and a bunch of competitive schools. We had 13 attending members and we were top 5 in 10 different events. So out of the kids that went, there's 2 kids in an event, barely anyone went home empty-handed, and for a school of our size, just starting up, that was super awesome. We had our Day of Peace Equity Assembly with Serve to Unite, which I felt went really well. The underclassmen who hadn't seen The Gift of Our Wounds saw that presentation and then went up to a breakout session. All of the kids who had seen that presentation already got to pick 3 breakout sessions, which ranged from advocacy for those with disabilities, education on Native American rights and sovereignty. We had our district attorney from Dane County coming in and talking about some different trends in tolerance and its relation to crime. Pardeep has his global advocacy that he does all around the world, and that was just a really inspiring message about some of the brighter parts of our country and how we can be accepting. And so really good feedback from that, from the kids that I've talked to. So that was really cool. That was all student organized too, so we were all glad it pulled together. A whole bunch of student volunteer events this last week and weekend. We had the Diabetes Support Night for basketball, the DECA Miracle Minute, and the Rotary Pancake Breakfast was also Sunday?
Yes.
Sunday, yeah. So that's all very, very exciting and a lot going on. Semester's getting off to a good start, and I think everybody is really refreshed after winter break, ready to attack this semester again.
Well, a tip of the hat to you for your leadership in the Serve to Unite round to help get the Day of Peace off the ground. Thank you so very much. You referenced the Skills USA effort that took place at the Technical College out there in Fenimore. And here's a great shot of a number of our student participants here proudly wearing their medallions. There's a number of other pictures. If you happen to be on our Facebook page, you'll see that we've posted these along with several other bits of information about students who won those awards. As a matter of fact, I've asked the Skills USA team to come to the Board of Education meeting on February 17th. February is CTE month. And what a great way to recognize the students who have grown this program just in one short year. You may remember the inaugural year of last year was about 13, 14 students, and now we have about 36 kids participating. Would be remiss if I didn't extend appreciation not only to our faculty and staff for helping to support this effort, but then also our cast members. You may remember this is a group of dedicated citizens who are wanting to do their best in order to provide opportunities for our kids in the schools post high school. So this is a great example of that. Also wanted to mention, of course we saw our fantastic student today. Do you remember Lucas Gonzalez, the young man who was here last time? And I mentioned to you that he was starting a Pennies for Patients program for the Leukemia Society. And their goal was $2,200 at the middle school. Anyone want to hazard a guess as to how much money they actually raised?
45?
Almost 3 times the amount. $6,500 was raised for Pennies for Patients. I just think that's fantastic. And so one young man's dream obviously comes to fruition quite largely. And there's some wonderful pictures of the check being administered on our district social media sites. Tomorrow also happens to be sports sign-up time for spring sports. I can't believe it. We're starting early February. We're already thinking about spring sports. And I want to extend a note of gratitude to each of our high school special education teachers, as well as Jennifer Eny and Brian Johnson for really what really turned out to be a wonderful transitions night last Thursday night, if I remember right. We had 50 families or thereabouts who came to the DBR program, which I think it says a lot about the need that's out there. And I want to thank also our not school nutrition, it was our family consumer science students who provided some refreshments for that special evening. So.
Yeah, I think it was maybe about 50 people total.
50
not
people.
family. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a really nice event, and everybody who came out of it said they were so thankful they went and how much they learned. So it was really good. So thanks.
I'll be taking a group of students with me to Monona Terrace to participate in an ethics symposium on the 14th of February. About 9 students requested to join us in that effort. It's all high school students from around Dane County who will be participating in this Rotary event. And last but not least, I want to thank the local newspaper for helping to promote the upcoming community book read, An Unquiet Mind. This will happen on Saturday, February 22nd at Bricks here in town. Just if you're not familiar with where Bricks is at, it's just right down the street there from the Grumpy Troll next to the Duluth Trading Company. What a fantastic book, an easy read. I think you can take care of it in an afternoon. It's poignant, it's thought-provoking, and I think one that will definitely elicit a lot of discussion. So I hope you'll join our very own Danny Michaels, who will be helping lead that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Other school news? Hearing none, we'll move on to 3C, citizens' comments. Citizens' comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to 4 personnel transactions.
There is an addendum, board members?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry, was that Jeff? Who seconded?
Jeff.
Okay, I couldn't hear you. Motion by Rod, seconded by Jeff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 5, consent agenda. Is there anything anybody would like to pull out?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Kimberly, seconded by Jeff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6, discussion items. Our first item is information and advocacy report, opportunities for progress based grouping and advanced learning. I believe we have Sarah coming down.
Yeah.
Come on down.
So I have both, action, or both ethics reports into one presentation, so I'll pause and get through the first goal, which is, looking at the students who are on grade level or higher, and our indicator was looking at opportunities for progress based grouping and advanced learning. I often like to show pictures in these types of presentations to get them into the report. So the report should mirror in more detail some of these opportunities, but it's nice to see the kids in the faces of the students who benefit from the programming that Christine Connolly are so thoughtfully creates for these kiddos. So we have a range of opportunities for students, particularly in grades 3 through 8, and we will have some high school students as well in this presentation. But opportunities range from Math 24 all the way through writing and haiku. And actually this year, and Kimberly Saylor can also talk about this if she's comfortable, Christina is also expanding the writing opportunities or contests to have a local contest where she's pulling in community members such as Kimberly, such as Matt Geiger, yep, to form a group of people who are committed to growing our own writing program instead of going out to Yahara or some other contests. So things are in full motion. I think we will bring back more information once we start getting kids learning about it, involved, maybe showing some of the contestants that we can have at a future meeting. But this year's theme centers around courage, kindness, and it's based off our
Three retreats.
the 3 retreats that we have, Brian. So respect. So we'll be providing more information on that soon. In scanning through further pictures, Word Masters is an opportunity for students to practice analogies, vocabulary, and things like that. So Christine has an example of 4th graders practicing some of their words and knowledge in the picture on the left. And then Science Night is always a night that we have in the spring, early spring, where students can showcase some of their inquiry and knowledge in the science areas. Camp Convention has always been a staple within our community for the past 6 to 8 years. And Camp Convention, again, is going to be offered at the primary center right at the end of the school year, right at the beginning of the summer vacation. So the week of June 15th, you will see Camp Convention. Again, hands-on opportunities where students can tinker, create, and explore. So some pictures from that as well. Moving into the older students, Christine tried something new called Math Madness this year. So it's a new team in the fall where students compete online against other schools across the country on various math problems and math skills. So it's all an online program. There weren't any notable placements this year. It was our first year in it. But many, if not all the students that participated this year wanted to participate next year. So we see this as a program that could continue to grow. Also a program that is no longer called Wickedy, but we wanted to put that name down because it's been known as Wickedy forever. That's the Wisconsin Center for the Academically Talented Youth. It's actually now called Online Academy. But again, it's just an academic acceleration enrichment program for students who are identified as advanced learners. We this year had 1 student in the fall take advantage of this online program. We have 10 right now in the winter who are taking online courses, and then we'll have 4 students in the spring as well. But part of the online programming is that they go to the University of Wisconsin and spend a day or 2 there, meeting their peers and moving forward there as well. And then high school learning opportunities, future problem solvers. is a piece. On the left side is our middle school team. That's the entire group of students, both team and individualized, that went to state and competed there. And on the right side, that's our international team that won state and then went to internationals in Boston, Massachusetts. Chris Kitty is the advisor for that group. So they're just some of the opportunities that students have, that Christine either works one-on-one or in groups with students, or also then works with advisors like Chris Keeley to provide students these opportunities to move forward. Questions, wonders, thoughts?
I just think I was reading through the notes, and I think it's really cool that they're actually covering Wickedy now. I participated in that in middle school, and I have friends now who are taking higher level high school classes with me who took Wickedy. And I know the complaint at the time for some of the kids was, oh my goodness, it's so much work, it's so much work. But a lot of my peers now who have taken it with me tend to be the ones who get into an AP class and then think, oh, like I've handled this before, because it's a lot of kind of managing your own time and working on longer projects. And so I know that wasn't something that was necessarily accessible to everyone who was capable and willing to take the classes when I was in them. And so there were students who were kind of shifting in and out of that program. But I think as far as, is it 5th through 8th that we do it here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so especially for those 7th and 8th graders who are then going into their freshman, sophomore year and taking some higher level classes, with the people that I've talked to, that's been really helpful. And so I'm glad that that's something that's more accessible now.
So this is our 3rd year offering, where the school district covers the cost of the class. We felt that if students are taking this class maybe instead of a unit in English, and there are students in the day, we should be paying for that opportunity. We shouldn't be doing it based on what they have available to them. So that was a choose and made a couple years ago. And thank you for listening.
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it now. That's
I
okay. If you pass, I understand. I know that we don't have a lot of staff in the area of providing extra opportunities. That's kind of a budget constraint we have.
Yep.
And so a lot of that falls on the plate of teachers to do that. Is there, if you could you narrow it down to one area that you think needs the most attention in that regard, by grade level or content area, or some, if we had more resources or something, this is where we should address first? Is there a glaring hole or something?
Yeah, I'd have to rely on Christine, I think, for that piece of it. She works closer than she's in the front lines compared to me with that piece of it. But a larger focus is on grades 3 through 8. So if we take that question and answer it by looking at grade levels, how do we continue to help K2 with their little learners? And then at the high school level, we do have opportunities for students such as AP and things like that. But how else can we support the teachers in the classrooms to push those students? If students then choose to take an AP class, how can we help further enrich them within their current classes? Math is an area, I think, as we move forward with our new program, when we're working with Christine to look at ways that we can help those advanced learners as we're learning the program as well, and support teachers in that, because teachers will be learning a whole new math program and then also trying to figure out ways to differentiate. So I think actually that would be our most immediate focus, is to help teachers differentiate at the K-5 level for the higher end within the math program. But math and reading would be the areas. Reading can be easier sometimes with we have the structures in place at the elementary level with guided reading groups and things like that, where students can be pushed to read higher level texts. So I think math would be the area for now that I would say moving forward. That answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, put you on the spot.
It's okay.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just to kind of throw an idea out there too, I've actually worked with Ms. Parmalee some in the FPS program. I've come over like random finals periods that I don't have to work with some of the kids and stuff like that. And just in terms of, I know like 8th grade, I was a tutor at the IC and they had me pulling out some advanced math kids and working on that. And I think it obviously is not a replacement for what teachers are able to do and what Ms. Parmalee is able to put together. But I think supplementing with some sort of age program for students, I think, I mean, I haven't asked students, so I wouldn't know, but I would imagine there would be enough of an interest with students for some sort of partnered learning program to kind of, if you are an AP science student or an AP English student and you have a free period that you would like to use to go over to those schools and partner. I don't know if that's a possibility in any way. I know it exists as far as some of the older kids in extracurriculars like FPS and Science Olympiad going down to the younger grades. But if that's something, I know the tutors that are over there right now, it's a lot of remedial work and like professional assistant stuff with getting copies made and things like that. But I think in terms of engaging students with those interests, especially I was there during wind time, so I was in a very free period. But I think that could be something that would be rewarding both for the students who have a specific interest like science or math that they're not necessarily feeling engaged in the classroom to explore that interest, and then for students who are in high school or middle school who have kind of a drive there. That could be something that would maybe take a little bit of the grunt work off of Ms. Parmalee because she does such an awesome job organizing, but obviously she can only be in so many rooms for so many hours of the day. That would maybe help with that a little bit.
Like you mentioned, they're using the resource that we have, the great resource that we have is our students, our older students in the district.
I think that could be the solution to the K through 12 tag light approach that we've thought about, because it doesn't affect a large amount of students. You just need a handful of high school students to go over there, and it wouldn't increase Christine's workload. So that's something we do.
Maybe start small, the pilot group. This quarterly could be interesting as well, so starting small and working on the kinks there.
Lots of research about peer-to-peer.
Right.
What are thoughts?
Move on to the next one.
Section 2?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Professional development. The professional development of staff is one of our indicators for Objective C, which is looking how we can support and retain the quality teaching staff that we have, which we know is a goal in our community based on a survey we had about 3 or 4 years ago, Dr. Snow, about what we should be really focusing on is retaining our staff.
Is the number one item?
Yeah, it was. So looking, offering just a plethora of everything that we're doing. As I was creating the presentation and the report in parallel, there may be some things in the presentation that weren't in the report and vice versa. So hopefully get a chance to read the report. I offered a lot of links, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted you to see sort of the full picture of what we're doing and then some examples of what we're offering staff as well with some of those links. So we have a couple book studies that have been going on throughout the school year. Play was a piece that came up within our community as we're looking at students' well-being. We had a group of teachers go to visit Stoughton as well and also do some other conferences and trainings about play. So Rachel Johnson led a book study on 2 texts, Kids First from Day One and Purposeful Play over this past summer. And teachers started to implement some of the pieces that were there. Those members that were on the education committee this year, we had that team actually come in and talk about some of the things that they implemented based on their book study and some of the learning that they did. But as we are moving forward with math and the math training, just specifically at the intermediate center, Ashland led this math back fluency book study as well. And it really helps set the table as we were working with staff and talking to staff about the change with our math program at the elementary level. Teachers could time and time again go back to this text and realize this is how we should be teaching math. Let's look for these kinds of things in the new math program. So this was just another way that helped us move faster to making a decision about changing our math programming. Data retreat is always a piece that we have every year. So just there's some pictures of our teams and some of the work. This year's theme was Carnival. So we had some fun where we had a contest and a team building contest who could build the tallest balloon freestanding structure. So that's what that picture on the right is. That team did not win. But just wanted to offer that we have to have fun too when we work, and we really have to build our team and get that trust as we move forward with our important work. Also, a smattering of professional development opportunities as we were implementing our handwriting curriculum. Many years back, we started in 4K, and then 3 or 4 years ago, we moved up handwriting tiers to kindergarten. Last year was first grade and second grade, and then this year, 3rd grade. So we had that scaffolded training and implementation of handwriting without tiers. So we had the cursive training for our 3rd grade staff this past summer. Again, we always have CPR training, and we make sure our staff members are up to date and be certified. Fact fluency I mentioned, we had that book study, but we also had Stephen Malovic from CISA 2. He had just mentioned an education committee come in, and he's been leading a series of trainings actually all school year with staff on fact fluency, but just how to teach good math practices. And then as we are moving forward with our technology push, we had our paper board training. That's Gretchen, one of our new library specialists at the K2 level. She's really taken the reins to understand the new paper boards at our K2 buildings, and then she also then helped our 3rd and 4th grade staff understand how to use the paper boards. So it's nice that we can have internal training and have internal experts on things as well. We also took advantage of some outside opportunities. Last year, I think it was the 2nd year, Wanakee had their Summer Science Institute. They are be kicking off the attended, you should come this year. But we had 20, 25 staff members attend. It was a day filled of teachers teaching teachers. So we had some staff members present, and then all staff members could also learn from other school districts as what they're doing in science, especially with the next generation standards. So that was neat to see. New staff orientation, that's our class of 2019, 2020. Some of us want to include their picture as well. Every year we have a great class of new staff members come through our doors. And then to continue our work with professional learning communities, we have the PLC Institute participation there. Within the report, I also front-loaded and put, we already have staff signed up for this summer and next October. This coming October, I guess, if you look at it that way. We will have about 30 to 40 additional staff members trained this coming summer into next school year as well. So our commitment financially and resource-wise is to make sure every staff member could participate and attend the PLC Institute. So we're slowly chopping away at that. To complement that work, then we have Dr. Cruz come in who works with Dr. Anthony Muhammad. You've ever heard of Dr. Anthony Muhammad, but he really focuses on school culture and how to move the needle with PLC. So it was really neat to have Dr. Cruz speak to our staff this past August. And we were putting our heads together to figure out how we can continue to move forward with the PLC piece. In the report, I put some links from a presentation that Dr. Salerno did, as well as some of our colleagues, where we wanted to share with staff, how do you do this? And okay, so we have the what here, so how do we do it? So we developed some tailored trainings for staff that they could choose whatever comfort level they were, whether they want to talk about common assessments, and that's what Dr. Salerno, Paul Christensen, and Rachel Johnson did, or if they want to just, we have this PLC time, principals have been doing a great job integrating that into the school day, now what? How do you actually run the meeting? How do you work together? And that's what Katie Helmuth, Lisa, Corbin, and I led. So we are taking ownership of the work and leading our staff to get to the house of things. The next piece, you can stop me anytime over there. Any questions? Okay. No? Okay. Again, talk about professional development in September. Again, the math practice piece and that vision piece, Katie, Holly, the education committee have talked about how to work there with Miriam from DPI, Stephen Novick from CSI. Just I like to show you guys as many pictures as I can of staff working and doing, and I think that's hopefully find what you want to see as well. So just some more work with staff, talking about what they want their ideal math program to look like. What's their vision for how kids should interact with math? Next piece is an ongoing, one of our other big rocks, looking at tech. And just giving you updates as to where we have been and where we're going with our tech trainings. We had our cohort 1 people, Channing, Lissa, and Melissa Gervasi come in last year to share. Our 6th grade team is working on tech integration, and actually we're starting our 7th grade team a little bit early. There was a request from our 6th grade team, like, hey, it would really be great since we have this group of 6th graders who got Chromebooks now for a year and a half. By the time they get to 7th grade, they're going to be waiting on the teachers. Let's start them a little bit earlier. So we're starting our 7th grade staff with some digital learning and Chromebook training actually in March. So we're working ahead of the game, which is awesome, to move forward. And then I ran out of space, but fall 2021 will be grade 8 and high school math. So the plan has been in place and we are chopping slowly away at it. So it's been neat to see. But that's also due to the board offering within the budget a couple of years ago to add extra $25,000 for Chromebooks. It's really, we couldn't do this without that financial support, so that's been huge. Another book study that will be is one of our big rocks in looking at grading and grading practices. So we have a very, very, very passionate group, 14 individuals, who want to shift some grading practices within our school district and really look at how and why we grade. So we have 2 texts that we're working on. I just want to leave that there because we'll be coming back to you in the future to give you updates as to where we want to go and how we want to do that. Hang On Equity Consortium is a piece that Brian Johnson, myself, Dr. Salerno have been attending these meetings. We have board members attend some meetings as well. We call them, what are they called? They're work.
We have work groups?
Work groups.
Break out?
Work groups, but who just recently went to the...
Kimberly and I did.
Yeah. Dan's gone in the past too. I think someone else. Steven has gone in the past. So we're continuing our good work there. We talked to pretty enough about consortium for now. I'm not going to get too far into it, but I just want to list all the schools that are involved in this and our vision and mission statement for the group as well. We hosted, on December 20th. And our topic was looking at the curriculum piece, but throughout the 1920 school year, topics range from some of the areas that are listed there, some of the topics that are listed there. Man, I put a lot of slides in this. Okay. Looking at another book study, sharing with the high school team. The high school team is really moving forward and they want to shore up some of their universal practices, and then they also want to make way on how to support students who maybe need more support, who need intervention. So they're starting a book study, and I could read the book title there, about how they can help move the needle with literacy and making the learning more visible. What practices are there that they can do school-wide to make sure that students are engaged, they're collaborating, they're thinking out loud, those kinds of things. So they're starting a book study as well. And that's the last slide. Wow.
Sarah, can you also speak to the conversations that we've been having internally with regard to placing on a schedule of sorts professional development opportunities that bring both the instructional side as well as the special education side together, so that maybe we can revisit this important topic mid-year maybe like July-ish?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna backtrack slightly, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
So, within my time, this is my 5th year in this role. This year, we've had a lot of professional development, but it's been focused on our big rocks. Whether we're looking at co-serving and moving the needle for students, or technology, or grading. We've had a lot of staff interested in wanting to learn more, and it's been a very focused effort in that, which has been nice, because we're all starting to see connections and talk the same talk and walk the same walk on our vision for the kids. That being said, looking at how we can continue to make these connections for staff, and for staff and the board and whoever, to look ahead and see what we are doing ahead of time. So within my process, and within Brian's process, and all of our processes, like, this is the time where we start making contracts with CISAs, start looking at trainings and finalizing that. We do all that in the spring for the next school year. But we were talking internally about laying it out very succinctly, that we could have everyone understand, okay, these are the trainings that we're having this year, these are the dates, and these are how these things go together. Because we want to bridge especially special ed and regular ed education, because all these initiatives tie so closely together and focus so much on grade level curriculum, content level curriculum. We're changing the systems, but it comes back to, we want all kids to access the universal core curriculum and do well in it. And if they don't do well in it, it's not a special ed initiative, it's not a regular ed initiative, it's our initiative to move forward on that. So we're being very thoughtful in all these big rocks that we have, the four that are listed, to make sure that, again, kids are receiving that universal curriculum and they're mastering it, and they're doing well in it. So that goes with the inclusion and co-serving piece. Then that goes with the multi-level systems of support, so kids can do well. And how we assess and grade them makes a big difference with what we're doing with kids. And then a way that we can get there to engage kids and to differentiate and to assess quicker is using technology. So people are starting to see how these things connect, because we're starting to have more committees and book studies, and we're really learning together. I think prior, there's a lot of learning in isolation in buildings that we weren't talking as much, groups weren't talking as much, but with the structures, it takes a while to have structures, right? With the structures that we're putting into place, people are starting to see the connections, and they're starting to drink the Kool-Aid. So, did I answer that question, Steve?
You sure did, thank you. And so with Vision 2023 being the board strategic plan, and then the work that was exhaustive work, quite frankly, that was done around the administrative strategic plan, what we're trying to do now is make certain that those four big rocks you see down at the bottom, we are asking our administrators to tell us, where are you at in your journey on MLSS? Where are you at in your journey on assessment? And there are going to be times whereby we all come together and we learn together, but then we're also want to recognize that each building is in its own place, and we don't want to have a top-down systems approach to them doing that work. The tight for us is that we're doing it. The loose is, how do you want to get there? Because that's how best learning, we think, takes place in professional development. So when we visit with you in July, we will be sharing with you the game plan to move forward for the future. We're trying not to be sporadic. We're trying to be much more targeted, much more focused, and in the process, we hope can provide some comfort to our staff who might feel like initiative fatigue. That's the goal of the administrative strategic plan, is to take away from that initiative fatigue.
I have two questions for you, Jen.
Of course, I got 90 minutes.
I can't remember the schedule. We have early release once a month.
Typically, about 7 times, yep.
So, okay. And then how many days are there during, not counting the back to school things?
The full days?
Yeah, I can't remember. Just the Martin Luther King Day? Did that count?
It's at Monday, yeah.
We have one more built in this year, just by nature
Correct,
of
this
their
year's been done.
being the leap year. And that'll be the last day of school for our faculty and staff. Our children will leave on June 10th, but our staff will stay with us an extra day. And what we hope to do then is to do some onboarding of that math curriculum ahead of time. And then also provide some supports to our 6th through 12th grade teachers in the co-teaching piece, the special education piece.
So all the K-5 teachers will be going to.
That's right.
So this year it is an anomaly. Typically we have the January date. A couple of years ago, earlier in my time in this role, we did have another date, the October date, that changed to an early release the calendar needs and calendar committee. But we have one day.
Okay. I mean, obviously, my question comes from partially wondering is that even close to enough time?
Time is always-
7 early release days and 1 full day in January. That seems like an awful lot. You mentioned initiative fatigue. Is it even too ambitious to be realistic? I mean, I'd like to know how we could find more time that's not just, oh, here's a class, you can take it in the summer if you want.
Yeah. Can I comment on, can I
Yeah.
offer what we're doing? We are trying to be strategic with sometimes. Early release time is used for some of the trainings and some of the pieces, but as you know, sometimes trainings, like if you go to training, doesn't fall on that day, right, we go when the conference happens. But we are using time where we, for example, the tech training piece of it, we've been having we've been in subs, and we have our trainer training this half in the morning and this other half in the afternoon, offering subs to be aware of the sub costs and needs as well. So while we're looking at this group, this team has this prep for 2 hours, and then rotating the trainer into that team meeting to talk through it, because doing it all one and done is not something we want to do. We want to have 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of training over time that are shorter segments that the teachers can learn, try it, reflect, then learn, try, reflect. So we've been trying to have that action research model a little bit more. Where it's not just a one and done. So we've been creative with the time, because the time is like the most precious piece of the equation. Hit that. So you have two things.
The second one is, do the teachers ever have the opportunity to meet 6-12 or K-12 by content area? Where does that
Early release
fall?
time. A lot of times that happens. So early release, so we have, I think, 8 early releases this year, actually. So every other one is opportunity for them to meet K-12 PE or 6-12 science or however it works. And then the other early release day would be timeline to implement some of the things that they talked about or documenting curriculum. So we've been more cognizant of balancing that time to meet with that need to also get other things done during early releases or trainings or other things. So it's been more of a balance this year in alternating those meeting times. Other questions, wonders, observations?
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Nice presentation as always.
See you in July with more speedy information.
I think we'll see you before July.
Oh, man.
Moving on to 6C, Community and Legislative Subcommittee Report with Leah, but Leah's not here tonight. Do you know enough about that to talk about that, or should we move that to the next meeting?
On this particular topic, if you don't mind, could we postpone it to the next meeting?
Leah would really want to meet her up.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Okay, and then we'll move on to D, which is shared learning reflections of the WASB convention. Who would like to start? Jeff? Kimberly?
Well, I did spend most of my time working in the Policy and Resolutions Committee. looking at state level resolutions that we could draft, and those are the topics that we use as talking points to our representatives at the Capitol. It's a lot of fall and winter work, and the results were mixed, I felt, at the delegate assembly. But of course, some really valuable things did unanimously pass, especially with types of poverty aid and rural aid and things that really would be crippling to schools and would cause them to shut down if we didn't get that done. So I'm pleased about that. I'm grateful to Diana for being our delegate and sitting here in the afternoon, and productive, and I'm excited to do that committee again next year. And then Scott and I had the pleasure of, well, it was a difficult topic, I can't really say pleasure, but we went to a sex trafficking presentation, and incredibly compelling about how much that crime has changed even in the last 5 years. And it is present now in all counties for minors in Wisconsin. I was thinking about a new SRO coming on board, and that's probably not a day one topic, but it would be a really nice community advocacy piece for some education around that, since Scott and I both learned quite a bit that we didn't know. So I was grateful for the time there, and happy to share time with the board there as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Hannah.
On Thursday, I went to one in the afternoon dealing with opioids. And I was, I don't know how the information the lady was giving may have been the process upon which she has to follow by, but there was a lot of questions to her about how the people in the district do it differently, and I think she was kind of sent into a little bit of a frenzy because there were so many people trying to tell her that her way wasn't right, and it was an okay one, but I think a little more digging would have made it a better one. I went to two on mental health, and they were basically what we did for startup. So that I was hoping was going to be the next step pushing it along, and it wasn't. Both of them were just startup phases. Going through the booths in the hall was kind of interesting. A lot of new people there. I talked to all three bus dealers, and the differences in the buses and the prices and how much they were going up this year because of state and federal improvements that have to be put on the buses. Another 6,000 to 9,000 somewhere in that area. So I talked to Baird, Brian, about if we wanted to keep our tax levy high, to pay down our debt quicker, how would you work that? And he was going to get back to Scott on that in coming weeks because he was going to be pretty busy with a lot of other things. from people with that convention. So I had a good time. The main sessions, the schools that played the music were great. The speakers, I didn't stick around for the first one. I couldn't deal with it. I had a migraine coming on, but one on Thursday I stayed all the way through. He was pretty good. We didn't stick around for Friday because of the weather, so.
Thank you. So I was there as well. I attended the delegate assembly, spent a lot of my time there, which was really very interesting to hear the arguments on both sides of some of the proposals. I found that actually a little fascinating to hear people speak on that. Whether or not they swayed people's opinion in the room, I'm not really sure, but it was very interesting to be a part of that this year. I also attended a couple of exhibits that Sun Prairie did, one on kind of how they tie in their strategic plan with their superintendent and their superintendent evaluation, how that all works for them, and how their strategic plan on a page type of reporting. It's a 3-year report, which I thought was really interesting. So that was very interesting. I also attended theirs on sustainability and sustainability practices in their buildings and work that they're doing on that. Spent some time in the exhibit hall looking at different types of curriculum and some innovative ideas that are coming out, which was also very interesting. Yeah, overall, as usual, it was a good experience. Did you talk about anything that you learned?
Oh, yes. In addition to some of the great things I've heard you all talk about, I attended one that I think is right up our alley, Kimberly, and that's about vouchers and transparency of vouchers, which was sponsored by the DPI. Scott and I had an opportunity to attend that, and tax levies. And then I also attended an update on law, which I always enjoy hearing. Allows us to validate the things that our board is doing in our policies, but then also stretch us a little bit. And one of those areas that I think we need to work on is developing a policy related to religious observances and those kinds of things that we don't currently have on the books. And so we'll start calling those kinds of policies from around the area. And then it got me excited, I think, because the National School Board Convention, as you might know, is just going to be in our backyard, really, kind of, in Chicago. And that's the first weekend in April. And I'm eager to learn along with others through that weekend. So thank you. Here's something else I learned, by the way. I learned that our Board of Education members have to take vacation days away from their jobs in order to attend these events. And I think that speaks even more about the commitment that you have for your professional development, that you'd be willing to take time away, not only from your families, your little ones, but then the fact that you're taking your own hard-earned personal, professional, vacation time to attend professional events. I think the public should know that, and how grateful we are to you for doing that.
Thank you. Sarah and Scott were there as well. I wonder if you have any insights you'd like to share. You don't have to, but you were there.
Well, I always go to things that address school funding. Steve alluded to the one we went to. Kimberly mentioned a really difficult one, actually, quite frankly, to just sit through was that, but nevertheless eye-opening in terms of just the significant challenges that one SRO in Appleton dealt with when it came to trafficking and things that he's seen and things that they've been trying to do to be more proactive. That was extremely eye-opening. There's been some proposed changes to the Wisconsin retirement system. It may not become reality, but changes that may affect people over the course of their employment, depending on their age and depending on if they're looking at coming back to public education after retirement and what that might mean to their pension payments and so forth. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, as Dr. Solano mentioned, I'm appreciative of when you go to these seminars and you see school board members and administrators from all over the state. It's interesting to hear from their perspective the issues that they're dealing with, in a wide gamut of issues, right? But nevertheless, it's nice to get a large group of people together to address various topics. And it reminds you that sometimes you're not on an island by yourself, even though sometimes it feels like you may be, depending on whatever issue you're dealing with. So thanks for allowing me to go, as always. And to drive.
I also went to the law piece, so I learned a lot there and confirmed some of the things that we're doing in Mount Horeb with our policy, so that was nice. I wanted to go to the trafficking one, so I would have to pick your brain more about that one. I attended another one instead. I went to one on customer service and how a school district worked with the consultants to work on more customer service procedures and protocols within the school district, particularly with office staff. So how do what's our consistent way we answer the phone or welcome staff or problem solve? Instead of being reactive, being proactive if a person calls looking for something. And there's just a really nice presentation of what that school district did and protocol guidebook that they created for any new staff to train them when they come in for consistency. And then I went to another presentation on co-serving at the New Berlin School District and what they're doing, and affirmed many of the things that we're doing, and we're even using the same consultants as well for training. So it was nice to see a district who's a little further than us and to see where we're going to go in that journey. So thank you. I love the drive down at Dairy Queen. You good?
Only the best.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other reflections or anything you want to share? All right, we can move on to the second Friday in January update. Scott, I think you get to talk again.
So you'll see a comparison in our two main counts that we have throughout the school year, the September count and then moving forward to the January count. All in all, I would say stable, right? Increased by a few, but stable, and that's promising. Keep in mind, we do have a third student count that doesn't take place during the school year, and that's our summer school count. We report our summer school students based on number of minutes that they attend school. So from a finance point of view, just keep in mind that September count affects our revenue limit, which helps us adopt our tax levy. The January count is actually a number that's used for developing what our state aid will be. And so as we go through the school year, I hear from Tammy and the folks upstairs how students are coming and going from the district from time to time. But it's nice to get a snapshot when we're kind of finishing the end of the first semester to just kind of see where we're at from a count point of view. Now, can we cast forward and say that 2,460 students on the January count will equate to that number of students when we get to the following third Friday for the new school year? It's hard to say. This is not all just FTE though. PPI makes us calculate percentages, ratios for students that are the upper three categories. But nevertheless, from a head count point of view, this is how many students we have, and that's a good reflection, obviously, on what could lie ahead for our enrollment next fall, which obviously has a big impact on our revenue limit, hence our budget for 2021. So, questions? I report this data. Tammy Bronick is the one that should get all the recognition because her and our school building main offices are the ones that are doing all the work. So thanks to them for their hard efforts.
Thanks, Scott. Moving on to our action items. Our first is a first reading of policy referred by Education Committee. So do we want to take these all together? School admissions policy. Let's take the new admissions policy first. So school admissions policy 420.
So board members, this is as President Rothmer referred, is a new policy that's being proposed, and the idea is to synthesize several policies into one, and the proposal that's being made here tonight is for the board to please give consideration to this policy while at the same time removing the other three. We recognize, because we don't have a full board this evening, that this will be something we're going to be bringing back. I think the vast majority of the information you find contained in policy 420 is reflective of what's in the three. Sarah, was there anything else that was advised to us by WASB to include that was not in the other three?
WASB just pointed out that we didn't have a school admissions policy. We had 3 policies that dealt with transfer students, but we didn't have any that actually talks about admissions. So that's where we started from scratch with this policy and developing the admissions language, and then concurrently interweaving then the transfer student language as well, to make sure that we didn't leave, as we're proposing to remove those 3 policies tonight, we didn't leave any of that information out as we were moving forward. So we had a whole, so we had talked about transfers but not actual admissions.
Are there questions that you may have seen that you'd like us to elaborate on? Or?
Members of the Education Committee that sat through the conversations.
Thinking.
Looks like you're mulling it over.
There weren't any other unusual special components of them.
That's what I was saying, maybe not all, I think that's right.
All right, we will see if there aren't any questions. We'll see this back a second time. The next one, 7B, is another policy, again in the same regard, where we're adding one policy to encompass some other policies, so that we have one overarching policy and not several, correct?
That's exactly right, Madam President. And what you'll remember is that the board has 2 policies. One that was found in the 400 series, which is reserved for students, and the 800 series, which is reserved for our community. And we felt like there was a disconnect between some of the language. The committee, Safety and Wellness Committee, had some conversation about whether or not this should, by combining these 2 policies, should be an 800 policy or a 400 policy. And by some degree of consensus, it was agreed that maybe we make this be a community-based policy, and reflects the language now found in the normal vernacular related to tobacco and tobacco-related products. Things that quite frankly, I must tell you, I myself don't even know. Who knew, in addition to the prevalence of vaping and the like, that some of our kids are using dissolvables and snus and some of that kind of thing. I didn't even know what that was. So I'm learning along with our students who helped advise on this policy as well. So thank you to Brian for your work in putting together this policy for the board's reaction, and reflective of the changes that we're hearing in our learning and our reading around tobacco and tobacco-related language.
Thank you. Any questions? Again, this is a first reading, so we'll see this back here next time as well. Thank you for that, Steve. And we'll move on to 7C, consideration of the 2020-2021 Wisconsin School Nutrition Purchasing Co-op Resolution, something that we've seen before. Are there any changes from previous years?
No.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Rev, seconded by Jeff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we will move on to 7D, Subcommittee Chairperson Appointments. So we had talked as a board about the possibility of having some chair people assigned to our subcommittees to assist with our learning in those subcommittee roles. So wanted to kind of get the board's reaction to roles and responsibilities for the subcommittee chairperson. If anybody has any definitive ideas on that, otherwise we can flesh that out as a board.
I'd be curious to hear from those who had this umbrella framework before, the older board members, and how that worked on a practical level with meeting in advance, with someone from the committee, and just sort of those details. Is it smooth? Were the lessons learned?
Well, maybe I can speak to a little bit, and Jeff, you can as well, since you participated in that framework as treasurer. Basically, what would happen previously was the agenda would be developed in collaboration with the administrator that was on that subcommittee. And then as the meeting progressed, then you would be the person that would chair the meeting. So you'd run the meeting, and much like I run this meeting, you would just go through the agenda items and run the meeting in that way. Jeff, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's the way it was done. Oh, God. I think 4 or 5 years ago. Then it switched over to what we're doing now.
Do you know why it changed? Like, what was the impetus behind?
The board back then decided that the administrators had to be present for the meeting and that they should have more participation with the meeting other than just set up the agenda with whoever the chairperson was from the board. And then it got switched over to the administrator would run the meeting from then on. And I was never happy with that when it happened, but I was the only one that was voiced against it, and the rest of them wanted to take that route, so.
When you said you weren't happy with what stuff?
Yeah, they would run the whole meeting, and we would just be the members of the committee, and that was when administrators were allowed to vote to them. And so was the student participant on certain things.
So that brings up a good point. So if we switch back to the way it was done, and board members chair the committees, do the administrators, are they voting members then?
I think that's a decision we can make. That's something that, a part of it that we like to want to keep, and we can do that. Part of the discussion. What would your preference be?
I don't know, I'm trying to picture it on the committee, so if you have 3 board members on the committee and one of them becomes the chair, then you're left with 2
Well, the chair
votes.
still votes.
The chair still votes?
Yeah.
On committee, yes.
And then I guess it wouldn't be that different. I don't see a reason for or against. It seems logical that the administrator would vote.
But see, before they weren't allowed to. It was just the board.
Because it's a board committee, the board members.
And if you only have one person there, then it was just a discussion.
I don't know.
That's why it got pushed the way it was, because for a lot of times, I was the only building grounds member showing up. And, you know, you can't run a committee meeting with one person. You know, because administrators weren't allowed to vote, so it was just discussion. Then it all got piled on to the next one. So you're not getting nothing done. And if it had to be done, then it got thrown into the board meeting. And it's not really proper to do that without it being discussed at committee first.
So Jeff, you've been part of both systems. Which way, what would be your preference? What would you like to see?
I'd like to go back to the old way
Okay.
and leave it so that administrators have just as much say as anybody else on the committee board.
But there would be a chair and confused.
Yeah. And the board would take over the chair part of it, or a co-chair part of it, and set everything up, whoever the administrator is with the set committees that they run. But that's just my opinion of it.
Thank you.
You guys can all decide what you want. That's my view.
So you said administrator attendance was down on the board, had the chair role, were they not required to be there?
Administrators were required to be there if they could make it. But when we had the building grounds meetings at 4 o'clock, nobody could do that. And it's been that way, God, at least 8 years with me. And I remember when I first got on the board, there was 3 farmers involved on it. And they would hold the meetings in the middle of the afternoon for the building grounds during the winter time, just so that they were out in the cold at night. Otherwise, they'd have to wait until 8 o'clock when they got done doing farm work. I think right now, the way it is, we can get everybody there without rushing at 5:30 for the building grounds. The rest of the committee times seem to work out pretty good. Building grounds has always been the weird one on the block because it was hurry up and get it done. But we could never get Brian there. We could never get the former bus person there before Brian.
Imagine at 4 o'clock or something. About
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
We have staff who help administer that meeting now, who start at 5:30 in the morning, I think. Isn't that right?
So Rob, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess my question is, so functionally, how did it work? We know sort of in theory how it might work with a board chair and help from an administrator, but did it effectively, was the board member really the chair, or was it a co-chair situation sort of functionally, or how did it really work?
The board member was the chair and that they ran the meeting and helped, assisted with the development of the agenda. So, and the way that we did it back then, finance, the treasurer, obviously, was the chair
Right.
of that. And I think the others just would
The others
be
basically
at the time.
voted amongst the three.
Among the committee. So what I can see this happening is this could go to the committees and the committees decide who is going to.
Would it, or it wouldn't become part of the reorganization? You would still appoint people to committees by the reorg meeting,
Yes.
but
And then
not
when that
assign
committee-
leadership until the committee met.
Right, that's exactly
And there's no policies that need to be changed.
No.
I guess the obvious remaining question is what's the reaction from the people who are chairing the meetings now? What are the pros and cons from their perspective that we should consider?
And I guess I would ask, what is the problem that we're trying to?
I think being a chair on one of the board's committees allows the board member to have more ownership of that meeting and more involvement.
And by, I think, to me, involvement means more immersion in the issues, right? So if I'm chair of a committee, I'm not just showing up, I better understand what I'm doing, understand the issues that are going to be addressed by the committee. I'm going to have to immerse myself and prepare myself a lot better than just any old committee member.
We want to solicit some pros and cons now. As we have
Or at the committee level? Yeah.
I think this could be decided at the committee level. I think the committees could talk about it. What do you think?
Seems like a good space to do that.
I agree, I don't think we're going to solve it tonight.
So between now and the next reorganizational meeting, maybe, so that you know, you might want to factor that into which committee you're on next time, knowing that somebody on that committee might be the chair. That would give us time to get that information. Or what action needs to be, what action would need to be taken to make this happen? Because it's not part of the policy.
I think the action can go to the committee level to discuss who would chair the committee. Obviously, finance is a little different because finance is typically I'm not saying it has to be that, but typically it has been the treasurer. How many years as a treasurer?
So I would just want to make, I'm not clear on one thing. So if we're doing this at the committee level, are we simply at the committee level simply working amongst the three board members to decide who the chair is, or would it be the prerogative of the three board members on the committee to say, hey, listen, none of us are ready to take this on. We prefer that Dave Reed, for example, continues to run buildings and grounds. Or are we as a board deciding
That it has to be a board.
that it has to be a board member?
Or is that a discussion we need to have at all committee levels and report back?
Maybe that's the thing to do. Yeah.
Like you said, how much can we answer now?
Right.
Or how much can we decide what still needs to be decided?
I don't know the answer to the question. I'm just offering it for head scratching. But I think Damon's right. So let's go back to the committees and have a discussion of the committees and then come back.
Is that consensus?
Is that a reasonable request?
That'd be all right.
Everybody's got at least one more meeting before reorganization.
Because whatever we decide, it won't take place until May 8th.
Right.
Because there's only 3 meetings left of this session before we break in a new person.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a clarifying question, if you don't mind, please. So I think I'm hearing that this would be part of our organizational agenda in the end of April. I'm hearing that the committee will discuss whether or not there will even need to be a chair of that subcommittee, that they'll talk about that, and they'll bring that back to a future Board of Education meeting. Is that accurate?
Is that what I heard? That's what I heard.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yep.
And that we would need action of the full board to make that motion and then second it?
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to send this to the committees.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Damon, seconded by Jeff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yes. Moving on to 7E, consideration of American Transmission Company request. Do you want to walk us through this one, Steve?
Yeah. I received this document back on January the 21st, and it's basically requesting that the district voluntarily provide permission for ATC to come in and survey the district-owned property where the proposed transmission line would go. In exchange for that, the district would receive a nominal fee of about $1,200, as you can see. In actuality, then you can see they want to do the soil testing, the land surveying, any archaeological surveys, etc. In light of the board's public comments with regard to the ATC, I didn't want to, and it's voluntary, I didn't want to sign something without hearing from the board.
Well, I think it's important to note that there are state and federal lawsuits challenging the PSC's decision to grant approval of the project. I don't think that, well, certainly I don't have any way of prejudging the outcome of either of those lawsuits. And I think this request really puts the cart before the horse, if not being downright presumptuous. So I'm going to vote no and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Is that a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion to reject this request.
Second.
Motion by Rod, seconded by Danny to reject this request. Further discussion?
Do you require the signature today? I can't tell, it says owner, the 4 lines. Who are they looking for to sign?
As I'm your agent, I would sign that on behalf of the board.
Regarding lawsuits, I was asked by the Environmental Law and Policy Center for permission to use all of my writing on this topic and oral testimony as they continue to litigate. So I don't think I personally would put my name in anything. I don't know if I'll be in court. I'm not sure. But my name will be in that litigation against them. But I would obviously concur with Rob that I would prefer not to have the district sign this.
And what is their next action if we don't do this voluntarily? I'm not clear on that. Do they have the right then to just say we're coming?
Thank you for asking that. So, because I didn't know the answer to that, I sent them this email ahead of this visit, and you can see their response in red.
And I'm not sure I'm reading that right. They're saying, yes, they're going to do an appraisal.
So there's 2 questions at the table. One that I raised that they did not raise. Before I get to that, it might be helpful just to respond to the question in hand, which is this voluntary permission. What does voluntary mean? If the board elects not to do this, what happens? And her response was, it's not required to be signed. ATC surveyors and other field crew will not access your property. ATC will still design the line, but they won't have the benefit of being able to physically inspect your property. So they might, in my follow-up conversation with them, because I called her then,
they might attempt to get access to these kinds of needs, soil testing and the like, through adjacent properties.
But then the second
Thank you.
response is,
I wanted to
they'll do an appraisal, just not a visit, basically.
Correct. I wanted to be clear that the $1,250 that they were offering was in no way, shape, or form related to the value of the land that they thought would be, and I just wanted to have them to go on record. And they indicated that they would follow up with an appraisal after a period of time.
All right, so we have a motion by Rod, seconded by Danny to reject or to say no to this request. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will say no to this request.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 8, citizens' comments. Hearing none, we'll move on to 9, future agenda items are listed. As always, if there's anything you would like added to the agenda, feel free to email that to myself, conclusion.
Board members, if you don't mind me just quickly interrupting, Madam President, in my weekly update to you, I indicated that I'm working with Bob Butler from the WASB to schedule some time to address a couple of questions that we had at the workshop. If I could trouble you at your convenience, preferably before Wednesday, to answer the doodle poll, that would be really helpful. It was in my weekly update. Yeah, no worries. No worries, we got lots of plates.
And then did you have another agenda or meeting? That's with meetings. Well, now we're on 10, scheduled next meeting.
Yeah, scheduled next meetings, board members. I just wanted to put on your radar, we're excited to recognize our 7 retirees at this year's celebration. And that looks to be taking place on Wednesday, May 20th at 5:30 p.m. We're going to try a new location this time around. We're talking about the Violet Room over at the Wisconsin Surplus. If you've not been over there, it's actually a very, very pretty room. And wouldn't you know it, it's named after Violet, the owners of the beautiful Wisconsin Surplus. So we look forward to celebrating them at 5:30 p.m. and then directly after that, we have our scholarship night here at the high school. So looking forward to honoring these amazing people.
More potential agenda items? If anyone has any liaison reports from visits or interactions, I feel like I was the only one that did something for 4K, so I'd be happy to hear what other buildings are doing.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, we postpone the closed session until next time, and we will move to item 12.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Rod, seconded by Jeff, to adjourn. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, thank you.